Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now on with the show.
Welcome, true believers, to the podcast without fear. I am one of your hosts, Zachary Harrow, and with me is a new addition to Southgate Media. That's right, Jesse Jackson. No, not that one.
That's right. I am not the Reverend, but I am a excited and very energetic host on this great new podcast. I am so pumped to talk about Daredevil.
This will be an interesting thing because this is one of our first Netflix podcasts. So you might wonder how we've decided to do for every episode of the podcast 2 episodes at a time. And let me tell you, listeners, who are probably ahead of us who are listening to this, it was not easy for either of us to not marathon this. This
is the kind of dedication we do for our listeners. It was tough. You and I both went back and forth. We debated both on email and Twitter, like, okay, well, maybe we could only talk about 2, but we both decided, no, that the best thing to do is to not cheat. Let's just go 2 episodes, and then what'll probably happen is when we quit recording, I'll go flip on Netflix and watch the next Dare.
And once again, we'll be like,
yeah, yes.
Well, what's good about the flow of these first 2 episodes is that it's like one big episode.
I was going to make that same point, Zach. It really did feel like a 2-parter, one long, his origin story, because you get a really good use of flashbacks showing the young Matt and the iconic story of battling, Murdoch. So it ended well, I think. So if we did have to stop with 2, it was a good story to stop at.
Now, before we completely dive in, perhaps a slight introduction to your lovely and illustrious host here, folks. I am Zachary here. Hopefully you've listened to some of my other podcasts. I've podcasted by now, I would say a good 3 years I've been podcasting by now. I've been with Southgate for a couple, and we do not have enough time to display the multitude of podcasts. But say for sure, if it's popular and if it's on TV, I usually podcast for it. And you can catch me up, just look me up on Facebook. I'm fine with that. And Twitter is Inch from Insanity. And yeah, that's how you can get a hold of me.
Now, I am Jesse Jackson, JWJ170104, and on Twitter. That's my Star Trek roots showing. I do a Doctor Who podcast on Southgate Media. I do for JKL podcast. We do a Castle podcast, and we do a general kind of science fiction podcast. And I also do a podcast with Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV on Game of Thrones. And so kind of a general, mostly on genre. And if you follow me on Twitter, you just saw I did a business podcast, which was very strange, Zach. a guy I had known reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about your leadership skills." And so it was very weird podcasting, not about geek stuff, but actually about work. So Zach,
work.
Yeah. So Zach, tell me your background on Daredevil.
Well, I've always been familiar with Daredevil. I wasn't even growing. I mean, I've read comics, of course, as a kid, but I wasn't I've never been a hard every issue buy every. But I know a lot about the character because he's obviously a cool guy. I've become more familiar with him probably since high school and college. But I definitely know most of the characters and references. And most of his villains, so I'm not going to be like, "Ooh, who's that?"
Yeah. So I am a child. I was born in '59, so I grew up, and I was a DC kid. I still lean toward more DC comics than I do Marvel comics, but Daredevil has always been one of the Marvel characters that I enjoy following. Obviously, Frank Miller. I love Mark Waid's take on the character. It is Michael Bendis's character. I've just always been a fan of, The Man Without Fear, and so I just have liked him. I love the idea that as a hero, he has a tragic beginning, right? He could be a Disney character because his parents got killed, but he somehow still, despite his handicap, is truly a joyous character. Despite all the crap that's gone on to him, and believe me, some of his creators have said, "Hey, how can we screw with Matt Murdock more?" But he's always seemed to have this, almost this pirate swashbuckler, character. So he's one of my favorites. And when I heard that they were going to do a TV show about it, I was excited.
And I was because the thing I like, and I think this is the definition between a good take on Daredevil and a bad take. One of the things that shows if someone understands the character, yes, he's got the radar sense, but he's still blind.
Yes.
He's still a blind man. He's got the radar sense, but he's not unstoppable superhuman. He's just a guy. He's essentially just a blind man with extra senses. He's still mortal. He's a mortal man. That's the difference. Some people have done a take on him and made him a little too unstoppable.
And exactly. And the other thing that I thought is really interesting, and Mark Waid has talked about this in interviews, that as technology is moving forward, this actually hurts Matt. He can't use an iPad. He can't use an iPhone. I don't know if they've established, can he read laser print? I guess he could because it would still be the ink. But, so as technology gets forward, he becomes more and more blind. They've done a little bit with Stick, and that taught him how to fight and such. But yes, he is definitely human. He is definitely moral. And that's one of the things I've liked about this series, just 2 episodes in, is they're showing that. He is bleeding. He is hurting. And
that's the most important, in my opinion, one of the most important part of Daredevil. He's a brawler, a fighter,
Yes, absolutely.
So I just want to say, I hope you mentioned Stick. I hope we see him because that was one of the. We'll probably mention the movie every so often. Which movie, Ben Affleck wasn't a bad Daredevil. He was not the reason the movie sucked.
So thank you. We had not talked about this beforehand. I do not hate the movie, and I certainly am not a Ben Affleck hater. I think that a lot of the press he's received, it can be unfair. And you're right. Whatever flaws were in the movie, I don't think was his portrayal of the character.
Now, a lot of the other stuff, yes, that was. One thing in the movie, they had Daredevil. I didn't even realize it because, again, when the movie came out, I was probably pretty familiar with Daredevil, but I became more familiar after. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I didn't realize till later is they have Daredevil kill in like the first 10 minutes of the movie, and that's like one of his. That's why he was never with Elektra. He believes in not killing.
That is kind of against the point, right? I mean, it's like showing and the latest Superman film. That's why a lot of people have problems with that, right?
Well, a lot of people. I think the best to dive into DC for just half a second. See, killing Ken, a guy because not killing comes from somewhere. A lot of people have said that's where his not killing will come from. His one kill racks him with guilt.
Right.
And so another thing about just this one thing I've always hated about the movie, and it involves Stick. One thing, for whatever reason, they put Stick in the Elektra movie. Still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
But they actually had him say in the movie, "I trained myself." No, I don't. No, not this. Of course, I would never say a blind person is not capable of. But one thing a blind person is not capable of is training themselves to be an acrobat parkour master.
Right, and it is. I think I have stayed away a lot from spoilers. In fact, I had forgotten that baby Jessica was going to be in the show. I gave up on True Blood toward the end, but I was always a fan.
The friend who I watched this with is a True Blood fanatic, and she started going, "Is that?" And when I heard Paige, I'm like, "Hey."
Yeah.
Oh, and I hope they don't follow the comics too closely, because I really thought Karen Page got a really raw end of the deal in the comic.
I absolutely agree with you, Zach. Deborah Ann Wall is so charming and so charismatic, and she's playing 2 episodes in. Absolutely just wonderful. I love the first episode where you could tell she was hiding something, and then at the end, the second episode when her and Foggy are out, hitting the bars, they was just really nice. So it's good. I guess as we start talking about the things, the first thing I think that we should point out is there is a great pedigree behind the camera. Drew Goddard, Stephen DeKnight, both from the Joss Whedon family of show creators, both worked on Whedon shows. Goddard wrote the first episode and started and then stepped aside. Stephen DeKnight, I am a huge Spartacus fan. And so I was thrilled he did it. I am a fan of Jeff Loeb. I know sometimes people do not like some of the stuff he's done, but I personally think he's written some great comics, and I have liked a lot of the work he did. So from my perspective, a totally, great pedigree and a behind the scenes. This is, I won't use the word all-star, but it's certainly, people. Yeah, it is really close. How about yourself? What are your thoughts?
Well, see, I'm actually I'm like the worst. Like, I can notice actors and stuff, but I'm like the worst when it comes to, like, if I'm looking up IMDb, I'll be like, oh, look, this guy. But like, I'm really bad in some cases going, oh, this guy, he's done this, and this. So it's hit or miss me when it comes to it. But the cast, because I actually know the guy playing Daredevil because he was in Stardust, and when I first heard he was cast, I'm like, really? Because he was awesome in Stardust, but I'm like, can he be Daredevil? And then there's so many, and then what I like is, do you recognize the actor playing Foggy?
So let me first talk about the guy playing Daredevil, and then I want to go to Foggy because I think that's really something interesting. I recognized Charlie Cox from Boardwalk Empire. And he was very good in that, playing, an Irish character. So I did not realize till someone brought it up that he was in Stardust. He was amazing in Stardust. I'm a big Neil Gaiman fan, and it was awesome. But I didn't know. So I personally, and we're kind of producing on the fly, dear listeners. But if I was going to pick a episode MVP for the first 2 episodes, I would pick the guy who plays Foggy Nelson, Eldon Henson. And so as I'm watching, I'm going, I don't know this guy. I don't know. I've never seen anything he did.
Oh, you have.
And so I went to IMDb.
Yeah.
Zach, share with us where we know him from. Yes. I know, which is hilarious, right? And then once I knew that, I started thinking, I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's hilarious. That is greatness.
And see, I probably recognize more because that movie came out when I was a kid, so I watched it a million times. So
Mm-hmm.
I recognized him pretty fast. I think I was like, hey, isn't that? Yeah, it is. He was, and for those of you who remember the movie, he was one of the tough guts
Right.
that they would bring out. He was an enforcer, which was
Yeah.
he was great in it. I thought it was great, but I'm liking him in this. So the episode start. We see right from the beginning they're going, and I thought they're handling his origin really good. Because one thing a lot of superhero shows and movies do wrong is like, yes, you want to show the origin, but you don't want to waste too much time on it. Because most people, even though Daredevil's not too mainstream, he's mainstream enough that you don't have to draw, like, they didn't make the whole first episode his origin, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, in fact, I'm one of those people that say we do not need to see the planet Krypton again if we do a Superman movie. Okay, they get it. One of the things that Guardians of the Galaxy, I think people enjoyed is, we didn't see everyone's beginning. We just kind of showed how the team got together and we moved on. So I do think they've done enough of flashbacks that you get the feeling, and I think the important part is not that how he got his radar sense and all that, but it's his blindness leading to his father's feelings of inadequacy and his father deciding not to throw a fight even though he's taken a dive many times, and how that shaped Matt into having this sense of wanting to bring justice to the world.
And I think it's worth noting that I don't know if, well, because it's hard, because origin story that can change depending on who's writing, but we see here that even as a child he was a hero. He was blinded because he saved someone's life.
Yes, absolutely, and I think and it was really nice. They had that little moment where and he's in the hospital and he can't see, and he goes, everything's so loud. So without, pushing a big yellow neon, arrow saying, look, he has enhanced senses. They kind of threw that in there very quickly, which I thought was nice.
I also like that he's not. I'm curious to see, like I said, I wonder if it's going to be stick, like how he got used to it, because we see in later things he's fine. He's like used to it. I cannot wait to see how that, because I always hate when it's like they'll show him like someone with super senses, and some shows have done it really good. Some have done it, like it's like he's not going to be used to that instantly. It's not like, wow, I have super hearing.
Yeah, and I did think that their use of bringing the sound up on the heartbeat when he was talking to Karen and other people was a really good way of seeing, okay, he's a human lie detector because he's hearing the changes in their heartbeat, and that's how he can tell if they're lying or not. So very, very cool.
What I like, since we're jumping around, one thing I like about that scene also is the reflection in his glasses.
Yes.
I thought that was a really cool shot.
Yeah, this is a well shot show. I have not, I will confess, I have not watched any Netflix shows except when I was on vacation this past week. My brother-in-law brought up Lilyhammer, and we watched the first season of that. So that was really the first, but that wasn't made specifically for Netflix as much. It was kind of, and I'm amazed at how high quality this looks. This does not look like a made-for-TV. Great character actors. The sets look beautiful. The whole scope of the world, Hell's Kitchen, looks good. I'm really, really happy with the look of the show.
One thing I think I think it's bear mentioning, because one of the Netflix shows I like is House of Cards, although technically that's a remake, but still, they've made it their own. Kevin Spacey, when House of Cards first came on, made an excellent point. He said for the cost to do, now I don't know how if it's like that for every Netflix show, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar. He said for the price of an entire series of House of Cards is cheaper than one television pilot.
Wow. Well, I know that J. Michael Straczynski, when he was doing Babylon 5, talked about that one of the reasons they were able to bring the show in under budget is that there was no waste. He says too much TV is spent at last minutes because the scripts aren't done in time.
Yep.
So you have to pay a lot of people labor, and doing a lot of overtime to try to get things up. Friday Night Lights, one of the reasons they were so inexpensive is they filmed a lot of stuff in Austin at actual people's houses, and the way they filmed it, there was not a lot of blocking. There wasn't as much rehearsals. They just kind of filmed, and that gave it that unique feeling. So I would think if you have all 10, 13, 14 episodes done in advance, you know where you're going, there is some economy you can make because you know what you're going to need to do and budget it well.
Right. And I think to talk about another network show and actually something else about is Longmire. I'm pretty sure that it's the first show to ever be picked up by Netflix after cancellation. So it'll be really interesting to see the difference. And if there's going to be a noticeable difference between when it was a network show than the next season when it's going to be a Netflix show.
Yes, it will be, because I think Longmire is a very beautifully shot show. Justified just ended as we're recording this, and it is, a similar theme of it is a different quote unquote world. It is a different community, and the idea is going with that. So it will be cool to see. What are we've talked about Karen, we've talked about Matt, we've talked about Foggy. Anything else on those three that you want to bring up that you were especially impressed with? Have you seen any, even if we want to nitpick about things that they're doing that you aren't sure you're happy with?
I can't think of anything that really I would have a problem with. Now, I'm not sure if they did that in the comics. I'm just hoping they don't do something stupid like Foggy has a crush on Karen.
Now, in the comics, there was kind of a love triangle between the three of them.
I'm just worried how they handle it, because sometimes it can be really bad. Like, if it's the CW handling it, it's going to be horrendous.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I hope it's handled well. I mean, I think there are shows that can do that well. And in a lot of ways, I would almost wish there wouldn't be a romance in this first season, that it is just us getting to know the characters. That would be, I think, a little bit interesting. I did want to mention that one of the supporting characters I've been impressed with so far is James Weasley. He's played by Toby Leonard Moore. He's kind of Fisk's, and we haven't heard Fisk's name yet, but hello, spoiler alert, right?
I think anyone who's, even if you just know Daredevil, they know it's Wilson.
Yeah, exactly. I have liked his character a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I just think he's that quiet kind of, matter of fact, taking care of business, seeing how things are going. I've really been impressed by him, and I think that's great casting and great writing.
I definitely agree on that. And as we see here, he's in the confession, so they're gonna delve into the religion aspect of Daredevil, and it'll be really interesting to see where they go with that.
Now, since you are not as familiar, Matt being Catholic was something fairly new to the lore or the mythology, and when I say fairly new, I mean
it was the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, but remember, since I've been reading comics since the 60s, I think of that as fairly new. This is a lot of his current look comes from the Frank Miller story, Daredevil Man Without Fear, which was back in 93. The blindfold covering the top part of his face. My son was already 4 when I was buying that, to tell you how old I am. but I love that he's Catholic. I love because even though he's Catholic-ish, it is something that is interesting. I think it gives an extra layer to the character.
I mean, he's an Irish guy in Hell's Kitchen. It's pretty likely he'd be Catholic.
Exactly. And it is this, there is that nice dynamic of the confessional, and it gives you a chance to kind of do a monologue. I think it's nice. Zach, what do you think of the fighting so far, the action sequence?
Well, that's where we are now, and it's really good. It looks like people fighting, This looks like, it looks like someone with good skills. Like, they're brawling, and I like how believable it is. He's fighting like a boxer, which
Yes.
I really like. I mean, they did great stunt choreography, and I love during the fight scene, this guy eating in the chair the whole time. He's just like holding, like, what the heck's going on? Like, he doesn't even get up.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
How about the moment was when he takes the taser, which I think is a foreshadowing of his billy club, and just throws it and ricochets it and hits the guy in the face.
I totally thought the same thing you just said. When I saw that, I'm going, is he thinking, hey, maybe I should work on something like this for me? But very, very cool. Yes, very, very cool. I have not seen a lot of and the different we've seen a lot of fighting, but it hasn't been monotonous. It's all been really well. I really like it a lot.
Now, actually, before we get, let's talk about the credits, the opening credit. What do we think about the opening credit sequence? The like the blood and the over the city kind of thing.
I was really happy with it. I thought they looked cool. The music is really nice. It was kind of eerie, but I enjoyed it. I thought they were really well done. How about you?
Now, we've seen similar styles like this for opening credit sequence. It's a classic way to use it. I think it worked. And they like almost matched up some, like they showed Wilson Fisk, like when the city's, like they showed the bloody building and stuff. So I thought it worked really well, and I was very happy with it. I was quite pleased, I would definitely say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we see him waking up with the phone. Now you mentioned technology. I wonder if because there's another show with the main character who's blind called Covert Affairs, and they handle it very well. And they have different.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder in this one if what kind of because I'm sure different companies have apps, programs, devices suited towards blind people, so I'm curious to see if we'll see any of that. Like, because I wonder what because I honestly have no idea what is available in real life, so I don't know what we could possibly see.
Yeah, one of the things that I did like in the movie is the idea that he slept in an isolation tank. I thought that was very cool and realistic, that if you were going to try to rest, to truly get some sleep, you would need to be in that, because how do you turn off your senses?
Okay, now, something I've always thought about that, and because you brought it up, I'll touch upon it, because I've never been in a separate deprivation tank. Also, I don't have a radar sense, so who knows. But
right.
I understand. Now, I could see a soundproof room, but wouldn't a sensory deprivation tank, wouldn't the water just keep him up all night, the sloshing?
I'd not thought of that. I think that is a great point. I guess the idea is the quiet. So maybe I don't know now. Now I'm gonna have to think about that.
See, this is why I'm here.
Yes. Yeah.
It's one of those things I've watched it a few times. I'm like, wouldn't that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe, and that's the thing. They didn't really touch upon that at all. Like he doesn't. It doesn't seem like he wears earplugs or whatever.
No, it doesn't.
So I'm wondering. I mean, I honestly, who knows? I mean, I don't know if we'll touch upon that or.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
And so we get a little view in the foggy bribing a cop with cigars for his mother.
Yes, which is a really good point, and I love that exchange. I did it enough. There's a lot of times you can spend the whole episode trying to write down dialogue to discuss in a podcast, and then you can, and you get out of the show. But in this one I did, and I love we've been enemies since we're 4, so let's not blame it on career choices.
That was great. That was
Secondly, I'm not a particularly good defense attorney. So and I do like the fact that they have embraced the fact that Foggy and Matt are just starting out. They have no money. I've liked the kind of the kind of off the kind of casual mentions of the Avengers movie. Right?
Yes, I was just about to I have it in my notes. Incident.
Yes. Barely touched by the incident. Oh, is that what we're calling it now?
So there we have it. This is connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
Now, what do we think about that they've connected it like that?
So as a guy who grew up loving continuity, I'm very happy. One of the things, and for those of you who are listening to this because you listen to my Doctor Who podcast, my co-host Charles Skaggs and I are both big Starman fans. Not the Jeff Bridges movie, but the comic book series. And one of the things that was so good about that is they took every character in the DC universe that had been called Starman and they weaved it together so that they didn't just pretend, oh, we're going to ignore this guy. No, they included everything. So I like the fact that, no, this is the DC universe. This is our version of, we're doing the TV show. We're going to do the Defenders, right? We've got the 2 or 3 other shows that are come back in.
It's interesting because the Hulk was a Defender.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so was Doctor Strange.
Right. So I'm happy with it. I don't, and especially since it wasn't overly heavy, but it was enough that they're acknowledging that, New York has been hurt by this. I think it's a nice subplot that our villains are actually making money off the heroes destroying things, right?
Well, that's very realistic.
Yes, it is.
Because in real life, that's always how it's been.
Yes. The industrial complex, right? And Bob Gunton, a wonderful character actor, known mostly as the Warden in the Shawshank Redemption, is playing Leland, Owsley. And, he was great saying, oh, we don't care if there's a mask. Good. That's where we get our business.
Well, the way he said was every one of the times these guys punches a hole through a building, we make like our figures go up 3% or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, really well done.
Yes, and when stuff like that, what I kept thinking when they kept saying like rebuilding the city, I kept thinking of Damage Control. Are you familiar with them?
No, I'm not.
Damage Control is from Marvel. They're like, well, there's been different versions, but basically they're the go-to guys when there's a big superhero fight. You can't just call the local whatever and say, hey, we need they're literally a company specializes in rebuilding cities or sections of cities after a superhero brawl.
And there is a reality to that. There is I had a boss several years ago that his one of his dogs cut himself and was bleeding, and just they had left him home alone, somehow had cut himself, and when they got home, blood everywhere. So, they rushed the dog to the vet. The dog was fine. They sewed him up. But then when Mark came back, there's blood everywhere. And so there actually was a company he had to call that came out that took the blood, they cleaned it up. And so obviously there's more gruesome, and Karen touches on that a little bit in the episode, right? I can't get his blood out of my carpet. But it is, so I think I have not read that comic. I bet it would be interesting to read.
Well, it hasn't been a comic that much. They're more a group that exists in the Marvel.
Okay.
They have done comics for them. There was a really funny one actually, where because of a strange event, the Chrysler Building became alive, and Damage Control had to deal with it. It was like the Chrysler Building literally grew a face and said, "Hey." And like, it was funny. It was it was an interesting Damage. So it's even in the Ultimate universe, Damage Control was actually the Wrecking Crew.
Very nice.
Yeah,
and did I catch just the slightest, just very subtle hint of you not being a fan of the Ultimates?
Well, the Ultimate Universe is in my opinion, the ultimate pun, hit or miss. But I mean, oh God, it's got so. But that's too much to get into on the podcast.
All right. So maybe after we finish Daredevil, Zach and I'll do a special rant-only episode where if enough people tell us they want to hear it, we'll do some special. As they call it here in Texas, we have a sportscaster that calls Dale Hansen Unplugged. We'll do a podcast without fear unplugged, where we'll go off on our pet peeves.
Yeah. So we see here. Like you said, you're the Wilson. We know it's him, the Kingpin's lackey. Oh well, first they talk to Karen, and she's like, "Oh, the lawyers just show up," and Matt, using his radar sense, believes her, of course, that she did not do. She wakes up and she's holding a knife. So hey, there we go. But and Foggy, of course, is like, "Oh, you have no money. Let's go."
Yeah, Matt is all about being the white knight. Helping the poor. The innocent that need. And Foggy's like, look, and I did love their discussion. Technically, they're all innocent until they've been convicted, so we can kind of represent a few more people, and that was a really nice scene.
Yes, and so they decide to take on the case, and from there we get the scene with Fist. Now this I found a really interesting take on the whole invitation. I mean, showing him a live feed of his daughter. That is something, and that's an example of something you could do with current technology.
I wrote on my notes that was so creepy, and it was, and I thought it was so effective for him to say, "Call her," and all of a sudden you see her pick up, "Hi, Dad,"
yeah,
and he's just seeing that, and it was, and it did not work well for our poor prison guard, did it?
No, it did not. Now, yes, he was blackmailed into attacking. Now, this scene really made me happy, because I've always hated in shows when people get killed so easily, because it's like, if you're getting killed, you're not going to play nice.
Right.
You know what I mean? You think, oh, that's it. I'm thinking, and then, like, she claws it, because that's what you would. Let me tell you something. You're strangling me, my thumbs are going in your eyes.
Well, and especially unless you're someone who is trained how to do this.
Right.
I'm a big fan of Lawrence Block's Hitman series. The main character is Keller. He is a hitman. Very odd books, because you end up, okay, so he kills people. Well, he's still a good guy, but he talks about that's what he does for a living. So with his hands, he can kill someone very quickly, not superhero kind of quickly, but someone. But just a prison guard, you're not going to be used to how to quickly choke someone or kill someone, especially if you want it to look like hanging. So I totally agree with you. She's fighting for her life. She's going to do everything she can, and that came out really well.
I agree. And of course, that incident she gets released, and she goes with. Now, of course, one of the best parts of the show is the interaction between. I mean, these guys became Foggy and Matt like instantly.
Totally agree. Wonderful chemistry between the two guys. You can tell the friendship is there. The affection for each other. They're depending on the day. It's like they're debating on who's the straight man and who's the comedian,
which is very important to the Foggy Matt relationship.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is, I know with some of my friends, it is, depending on the day and depending on the story, we flip back and forth between being who's the comedian, who's the straight guy, who's back and forth, and it is a great relationship.
Now, of course, she finally tells him the truth, and that apparently there's this whole money embezzling scandal at her work that she discovered. She tried to get some help, and that's who she was framed for killing her friend that she wanted help with. Now, what I find this is one of those things that I really like. What she says here: either you're with them or you're not, and if you're with them, I'm already dead. And if you're not, you're dead.
Yeah, she's very practical. At this point, she's just anyone. And so if I tell you you're going to kill me, and if you truly are who you are trying, say you are, I'm going to get you killed. And once again, I've already said I'm a big fan of that actress, and she is just bringing it as Karen.
This is actually the first, because I've never watched True Blood. This is my first introduction to her, I believe. But yeah, this is something I'm just realizing because I'm watching the episode as we're talking. There's not really an attraction there yet, and I think that works. I always hate that whenever you have two characters, especially comic books, that from the comics were in love in the comic books, you put them in the show and they instantly love each other. It's like, no, that's not how life. No. So, I mean, there can be something there, and there is, but it's not like tear each other's clothes off the second they met. You know what I mean?
It is. I think that's very good. I think that you want that payoff. And like I said, I would be very happy if they did not do a romantic triangle or even anything to start out with. That let's wait and see what happens with the characters.
There's a show I've mentioned many times. Did you ever watch Leverage?
Yes, I like Leverage.
I think that is one of the best examples of character and relationship development in TV, because there were two sets of characters that had obvious feelings for each other, but for realistic reasons they didn't get together till like season 4.
Yes,
and that's a risk, but that's the risk I like because it's believable to see the build, the give and take. It's not like some show. See, and in my opinion, the polar opposite of that, Bones.
Yeah.
They waited way too long to set them up. And so, in my opinion, when they finally did get together, it wasn't believable.
Well, and, I had given up on the show by then.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah, I agree. And, another show that I was a big Eli Stone fan. And they handled the triangle really well, where everyone, the two female leads that were, Johnny Lee Miller was chosen between, you liked both of them and you were okay with both of them, and you kind of could see versus I'm not sure which one it's supposed to be. So I'm hoping they don't go too bad and we kind of get a chance to get to know the characters and then see what happens.
I thought another show that came close to doing it too much, but I think did it all right, was Castle and Beckett.
Yes.
It came that close to waiting too long, but I thought they handled it quite well.
Yes, and one of the things, and I do a Castle podcast, and one of the things we're really happy about is it appears, and they're changing showrunners. If they get another season, next season it will be a new showrunner. And one of the things I'm worried about is they have seemed to be committed to, okay, I'm going to, we're going to have them together, and it is, they may fight, they may argue, but they're together. We're not going to have this fake, we've got to break them apart, we've got to get them together. And so, yes, you want to, I think, play fair with your audience, and if they've earned a relationship, they should keep that and make it realistic.
Now, okay, so back in Daredevil, we got the scene on the roof with all the villains and stuff. Now, I know this is a weird thing to know, but I looked it up. Now, this is a real Russian word when he called them a mudak. But it's funny when he says that, because when I heard him, I literally went, did he just say Modak? I don't know if they intentionally use that rush, because I've looked it up. I think it can also be a food, and there's a band called Mudak. But when I literally, my first thought was, did he just say Modak?
I did not catch that. That's pretty cool.
It's now I actually brought this up in a Marvel Facebook group. I wonder if we'll ever now I don't think he'd ever show up in Daredevil. That is a villain I wonder if we'll ever see on live action.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
That would be.
if they did, it should be like a mix of real and CGI.
Yeah, I
mix
think
of
so.
it.
Yeah.
So Matt talks to Karen about like why he thinks they came after him. Obviously, this like she says no, but he knows he's lying. We've mentioned that.
Hmm.
Now she leaves, and of course he knows. Now, she goes back to the apartment, get the flash drive. We see the blood there, and she's attacked by a killer. And of course, Matt comes in the outfit. Now, what do we think of the outfit of the beginners? Like, I think he kind of, you know what he kind of kept making me think of Snake Eyes.
So I don't think of that, but like I said, if you Google Daredevil Man Without a Fear, you will see that look that Miller did. So I like it. My only nitpick, and it's just something you have to accept, is that there is no reason when he's on the top of the roof that he would not have the mask over his eyes. He's blind. He can't see.
I was a little confused about that. I mean, it made me think of the Superman thing.
Yes.
When he's like in the space listening, but and I'm like, well, yeah, why does he have his mask on?
Yeah, and it's purely for, somatic.
Yeah, and
reasons.
that is one thing I've always had a problem with a lot of superhero movies. They keep taking I think the worst example of it is probably the original Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
With Venom. Every shot with him is with his real face. No, Venom does not do that.
Right. Yeah, it is. And there is a lot to be said for the, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's, but yes, and they keep having him with his mask off because you're paying an actor a lot of money to be in that, and you want to show his face, but the character doesn't have, and the mask covers the face, and in this case especially, Matt Murdock is blind. He doesn't need to have that off. He would have it on all the time. So small nitpick, but it is when I went, oh really? Come on, guys.
Yeah. So we see we get another superhero. Now we get a flashback here as he's fighting of his father coming home beat up and telling him it's how you get back up. And we get this great show. He's like, get up, like go to work, Matt.
Yeah. I wrote that down. Come on, Matty, get to work. And that was a really good use of the flashback where, the modern, our present time Matt is laying there bloodied, hurt, and you hear his voice, come on, Matty, get to work. And he starts getting up. So it's really well done. It is, in his own way, Matt is haunted by his father the same way Bruce Wayne is haunted by the murder of his parents. Just a little different twist.
Now, I think another thing and this is true of all the fights, really, is another thing I've always hated about bad superheroes. It's like when they show a hero, not even superhero, like action movies. Like they got the guy coming in and fighting, and he always cleans the clocks of the minions. But if a guy is in this level of a criminal organization, he's gonna know how to fight, and this guy gives Daredevil a fight for his money.
Yeah, in fact, they talk about that. He's a professional. I find that hard to believe he got taken down, right? And so, really, I have not seen a lot of what we call hand waves, right? Where you have to go, okay, we're going to hand wave that plot hole because we're enjoying the ride too much. I have not seen a lot of hand waves in the first two episodes.
Yeah, and I think the thing, if you really look at his fights, he does it, when you really look at it, he's not winning because of his fighting skills, because he's a good fighter, but he's not like, and this has been talked about, like how a lot of heroes are too good at fighting. He wins because he doesn't stop. He wins like his father did. He doesn't go down.
Well, and like he talked about, when my dad was losing, he would just let the guy hit him until he broke his hand. And that's not an exact quote, but that was the idea, right? The ultimate rope-a-dope from Muhammad Ali. I'm going to let the guy just keep hitting me till he's tired, and then I'm going to take him out.
Right. And he wins the fight. How about when I like that part when he catches the knife. The bad guy catches. Usually you only let the hero do that.
Yeah, no, it was a very cool moment. They're giving, it is going to be hard for Matt to win, and that's okay, right? I think that makes for better TV.
Yeah, and so. And now, when he dropped them off, did you think when he dropped them off at the newspaper we were going to get Ben Urich?
I did. In fact, I did not see what they'd written on the envelope.
Editor.
Okay, editor. Okay. Yes, I was thinking of, because he is pretty well known in the Daredevil, genre.
Not even just Daredevil. By now, he's pretty well known in the mainstream Marvel. He's become pretty because they started the front. I don't know if Frontline is still a comic, but for a while they had a really interesting idea. They had an independent newspaper called Frontline, which would talk about. It was a lot like the Newsroom, although this was before the Newsroom came out, where they would take events from the Marvel universe. And that's what the story would be. Like, they would be like the regular people doing a story on it.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Or another thing they would do, and this was cool too, they would do a smaller story that wasn't like stuff that people didn't know about, like a smaller story that they didn't know about. It was a really good take on it. So from there we get the scene with we hear Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, and I'm gonna reserve judgment on because he obviously can't go by voice till we actually see him, because I'm curious to see what he's gonna do. So they talk about all the machinations of covering up the crimes, and that one thing we do know for sure is that the guard got killed, and but then we're back at the office, Karen having dinner with Foggy and Matt, and she decides to stay on as secretary. And I love that scene. He's like, I work for free. He's like, you're hired.
Yeah, that was really well done. I liked Matt going to the gym, and then the kind of montage of seeing everyone, the daughter finding the dad dead.
That was very. Now, what do we think about that? They used him fighting as they're showing the events. That was cool.
It was very cool. We see all the blind people putting together the heroin, which was kind of a nice symmetry, I guess. I bet they'll go somewhere with that. I think so. The plans for Hell's Kitchen.
The plans for Hell. Now, do we think that Nobu, is this the hand?
Could be.
That's what I first thought. When I saw him, I'm like, I wonder if this is the hand. Because in the comics, Wilson Fisk actually eventually took over the hand.
Yes, he did. Yes.
I don't think they'll ever do the Shadowland story, but...
Right. No, I think that's a good catch. Really good catch.
I bet it is. I have a strong feeling that they're... Now, I don't know if they're going to have a bunch of red ninjas with samurai swords. That I don't know.
Right.
But they might have something, and I'd be interested to see their take on it.
Yeah, I agree. Good.
That's pretty much wraps up the first episode. I mean, there was so many elements, almost too many to fit into one episode, because there's so much little things. The nuances of this show is quite good.
Zach, I think they did a great job of what you want in a pilot, or in this case, a first episode.
Well, that's what's great about it being Netflix. It's not a pilot, and
right.
They don't have to try. No, they just did the show,
Right. But they set the world. They set the rules. They introduced us to the characters. We now know kind of who everyone is and what they are.
Yep. And I just love the interaction, Matt and Foggy just with each other, and Matt and Karen at the apartment. All those great little moments, like I'm told my living room was a mess. I love that.
Yes.
So from the first episode, we'll do now. People, the usual format of this will be this is a little different because it's our first episode. We spent a lot of time talking about background, but we'll probably in most runs we'll probably compact both episodes into our one podcast episode. But we'll call this part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, in case we'll do this just in case people want to split it up.
Yeah, we have kind of gone along. So I really happy. The one line that I didn't get to mention, but I thought it was wonderful is I thought I detest a whiff of virtue in there. When she cooked for them. I just love that line.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, and one thing I forgot. One thing I forgot to mention is when he says, "I don't know how you know they're beautiful, but you do."
Yes. Very, very cool. So good. So Zach, as we produce on the fly, are we going to give ratings, or are we gonna not do that?
Well, if you want, do you want to do a rating since we're producing on the fly?
Sure, I have no problem with that. So I guess we could do a scale 1 to 10 billy clubs, but then we never use billy clubs. We use something else from the team. So I would give this 9.5 barrels of toxic ooze. And the only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is that I hate to give a 10 right off the start. You know what I'm saying? But this is as close to a perfect hour of TV, not just super TV, of TV as I've seen in a long time.
Yes. So me, I mean, I'm so bad at giving things ratings, but I'm just going to say it almost got a perfect score for me too because it was so good, and like I just hate giving it, but it's definitely up there. Very good, very very excellent. I'm very happy. I really had no problems with it.
Good. So okay, that's what we'll do. Fans, Jesse will come up with some kind of clever, as I said with air quotes, quote, and then Zach's just going to go, yeah, good, not pretty good, and we'll go from there.
It's kind of like we're Foggy and Matt.
Yes, exactly. We are Foggy and Matt. I will take that, and depending on the episode, we'll switch back and forth.
Right.
So I agree with you. I think this is a good start. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, listeners. Thank you for hanging with us. Zach, thank you for driving the bus and taking us. And now then we're going to, we will look for your feed shortly. We'll have the episode discussing the second part of this two-parter. But for now, I think we're going to thank everyone for listening. And remember, we Murdochs get hit a lot, but we always get up. Thanks for listening. Bye.